Baruch Ben Yosef and Mayor Halevi Weinstein, and we're starting momentarily. So turn us in on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or on our website. And without any further ado,
and everything. After 15 minutes, he says, "You're not distance."
Wow.
I went straight to Harabite.
Great.
Okay. Good evening to everyone who's in Eastern Standard Time. It's like midnight, so just after midnight. Good morning to everyone who's in Israel. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning, just after 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm joined with Baruch Ben Yosef, who is on Harabite, who is on the Temple Mount. 56 years ago, Israel liberated Jerusalem and territories, and it's an honor that we have been for the past few months already conducting once a week a Parsha from the Temple Mount, something that our people for close to 2,000 years could only dream about. And we're doing it. And there's a momentum of more and more Jews going up to the Temple Mount. And it's becoming more significant for the Jewish people. And we're going to be talking about the Parsha. Baruch will explain it and how it relates to the Temple Mount. I see throughout the Parsha that it is so focused on the Mishkan, the tabernacle, which led to the construction of the Beis Hamikdash, the temple in Jerusalem. So without further delay, Baruch, how are you? How's the situation up there? Let us know what's going on.
It's nice and quiet today. I don't see any Arabs around. I don't know what happened. Maybe they're gone. Maybe the Arabs have left, picked up and left, gone to Mecca.
Could be.
They belong, and they've handed it over to us. Wouldn't that be
They
great?
gave the keys back.
The question is, would the Jews know what to do with it once they have it back? We know what to do, but I can't say for sure that the Israeli government or the chief rabbinate. It's really amazing. I know what's going on today. It's like, look around, nobody's here except us Jews.
Wow.
And some cops.
Wow.
Very nice. Very nice.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we missed last week, and now we're back. And this week is, of course, the very, very, very serious portion about the spies. It's called the Meraglim, Parshat Shlach, where basically the Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses sends the 12 spies to spy out the land at the request of the people, and they're supposed to come back and give a report to Moshe Rabbeinu what they found in the land, because they're about to go in and conquer the land, liberate Eretz Israel from the Canaanites. So, it's typical strategic move to send spies to see what's going on before you go and start a war. But God really says to Moshe, it's up to you to decide if you want it. I didn't ask you to do it. I didn't tell you to do it, and God didn't really want it to be done, because He said basically just trust in me. There's nothing to really, there's no reason to really go and spy. If you trust in me, everything, that God promised us everything will be all right. Just go in and conquer the land. So really, it wasn't necessary. But the people wanted it, and Moshe Rabbeinu agreed. Kind of like democracy, that's the evils of democracy, right?
Right.
Majority rules.
Right.
And instead of instead of a king putting his banging on the table and saying, I decide, not you, not the people, Moshe Rabbeinu listened to the people, and he went and sent in the spies. Now, we should know, first of all, he picked some of the top people from each tribe. It wasn't just anybody. It wasn't like it wasn't like 12 James Bonds. It was people that were called Gedolei Torah, were scholars, Torah scholars, leaders of their tribes. So Now, interesting. I just realized this preparing for this portion this week. I was trying to figure out what went wrong. Where did it go wrong? Because it seems
Yeah.
like from what the rabbis tell us that from the very beginning it was off. It was like from the very beginning, the spies were planning, were conspiring against going into the land of Israel, and that while they're conspiring, these 10 spies, there were 2 spies that didn't conspire, which was Kalev and Yoshua. Kalev the from the tribe of Judah, and Yoshua from the tribe of Ephraim. So Kalev, though, plays along as if he's with them, with the spies, with their conspiracy, although the whole time he was planning to, to do what he could to diffuse this conspiracy against going into the land of Israel. And he didn't know, or he had no idea that Yoshua was, not part of the conspiracy. Neither of them knew that, because they were afraid if they come out against them, they might kill them. So I don't know what kind of these weren't great tzaddikim, they weren't great righteous people. The fact that that Kalev and Yeshua worried that they might kill them for coming out and standing up against them. But in any event, I noticed in the Parsha, when it starts off, when it mentions the names of the spies,
right,
and obviously it was Moshe picks them, and the order is according to the not according to the way the tribes were set up in the desert. And we discussed this a few weeks ago, how there was on the eastern side there was Judah and Issachar and Zvulun, and then they were divided into 4 different groups, and each group had a leader. Or on the east it was the head of the tribe of Judah, and then on the northern side it was the head of the tribe of Dan, and in the southern side the head of the tribe of Ruvain, and on the western side it was the head of the tribe of Ephraim. And each one of those tribes had 2 other tribes with them. That's how it was set up. But we see that the order that Moshe Rabbeinu goes according to the order that they were born. In other words, he has Ruvain first. Okay, Ruvain is the firstborn, and he goes according to the order after Ruvain is Shimon. But in actuality, it's like jumped out at me. I said, why did he do that? I mean, we already have a different division now of how things are set up. It's no longer according to the order that they were born. It's now, it said in the previous portions that like last week, the first tribe to lead the nation towards going into the land was Judah, right? Judah. He's the first.
Right.
He's supposed to be leading, but now we see a different order, going back to the old order of according to how they were born, and I think that was Moshe's mistake. I think that he, besides the fact that he basically agreed with the people and did what they want and sent in the spies, but he didn't put the right people in charge. In other words, if he would have put the head of Yehuda, Kaleb ben Yefuneh, in charge, or to put the head of Ephraim, Yeshua ben Nun, in charge, and they would have been leading the group, it would have had a whole different, result. Because it's always important, and I mentioned this before, who's in charge? Who's in charge? Like I mentioned a few weeks ago, we were talking about the 6-Day War that Rabbi Igor and Rabbi Shlomo Goren, who was the chief rabbi of the army at the time, had he been in charge, things would have been a lot different. I mean, he came up to the Temple Mount after it was liberated by the paratroopers, and he said to the head of the Central Command, Uzi Narkis, let's call in an airstrike. This is a window of opportunity. Call in an airstrike, and let's get rid of the mosques. But Uzi Narkis, being who he was, said, if you don't shut up, I'm going to have you arrested. And because Rabbi Gordon wasn't in charge, but because small, like Rabbi Khan used to call them, small myopic people were in charge, who didn't realize the golden opportunity, the window of opportunity, that it's not often, God doesn't always give us the window of opportunity. He opens it up, And if you don't take advantage of it, you know, it closes up and that's it. And then you have to wait years and years and years for another opportunity. You know, unless you
Right.
can initiate some kind of situation. But for many times it's very difficult to initiate a situation. You have to wait till something happens. And that was the golden opportunity. It was the 6 Day War. The Arabs gave us the keys to the Temple Mount. The army's up here. There are no Arabs up here. It was the opportunity to get rid of the mosques and build and begin rebuilding the temple and renewing the service and so on. And again, if Rabbi Goren was one rabbi in the generation, he almost had nobody with him, and obviously nobody listened to him. So I believe that if I mean, I didn't see any commentaries on it. This site jumped out at me, but I think I'm right. I think that the order of things is what caused the whole thing to go array from the very beginning. It should have been Judea or Ephraim at the head. Okay, again, remember, Judea, Judah is where David HaMelech, King David, comes from. Ephraim, you know, Yeshua, so Ephraim is considered Mashiach ben Yosef. Rabbi Kahana, you know, wrote so much about Mashiach ben Yosef, and in fact, the famous chief rabbi, the only rabbi that was ever called the rabbi of the Temple Mount, Rabbi Getz, the Kabbalist, said he had a dream the night Rabbi Kahana was killed that he was Mashiach ben Yosef. He was the Messiah, the son of Joseph, and that you know, and Rabbi Kahana used to always write about that. If you look in the Or Rayon, the book, his monolithic book Or Rayon, you'll see that that's a major chapter in the book of the importance of Mashiach ben Yosef. Because if we try to understand the difference between the two, why are there two kings of Israel? Why is there a king from Ephraim and a king from Judea? The idea is that they're supposed to, one represents the spiritual level, the high spiritual level of the Jewish people, and the other represents the physical, the great physical level of the Jewish people, and they have to work together to bring about a reality that is perfect reality, which is basically up here on the Temple Mount with the temple and the Kohanim and the Leviim and the Israelim, everybody serving, doing their purpose, doing their job to serve Hashem up here on the Temple Mount, and that's the purpose of these two kings, is to bring us to that level, to that reality, one physically and one spiritually. Unfortunately, we don't have either, whereas we have, you know, signs that we're headed there, but we're in a situation of there is no leadership really in the Jewish people. The government obviously has shown they're not true leaders, and they can't even get simple things taken care of, like the whole issue of legal reform, which needs to be dealt with immediately because the situation in the courts here is so bad. But you know, I don't believe that it can be done through democracy. It can only be done through a monarchy, a kingship. And remember, Rabbi Kahana's last book before he was killed, after he had been banned from the Knesset, was the book, the book of Referendum or Revolution.
Right.
Referendum Revolution. I'm sure you've read it, and you can give your you can give your insights into it. I'll just quickly say that, in my opinion, it's one of his best books. Because basically, in the end, he says that he goes through the history of democracy, shows all the flaws of democracy, and not just by the Jewish people, but you know, in France and America and in England and other places. And then he shows that democracy really doesn't reflect the idea of the people rule, which is supposed to be, right? The people rule. In this country, they say the sovereign is the people, you know, and then they vote for the Knesset, and in the end, the courts decide, you know. So I don't see how you can say the people are the sovereign. But in any event, so in the end, he says, if they're not going to actually represent. In other words, the concept of a democratic system is you have representatives representing the people. The people voted, and this is what they want. And now these representatives are supposed to carry it out. But in actuality, we know that the representatives don't do what they're supposed to do. They lie and don't do what they've been mandated to do by the people. And then Rabbi Kana says in that case the only alternative other than having a king, which is the way it says in the Torah, is to have a referendum. Referendum meaning the people vote directly for the laws. They legislate themselves directly by referendum. And he said that's the only solution. That's what it says in the book. I just want to say one more thing before you give your insights into the book. Is that in the yeshiva of the Jewish idea, Rabbi Kana was questioned by one of the students. This appears in the book that was written. It was a book that was written by Nati Ozeri, who was his student. He wrote down look at it quickly. Look at this guy here. See the guy with the suit walking there? Okay, he's a general manager of the Muslim Waqf. I'm going to talk about him. But in any event, Rabbi Kahana in one of the classes, he's asked about this referendum revolution thing, like what's the basis for it? I mean, we really want a king. We don't want a democracy. We don't want referendum or revolution. So Rabbi Kahana, we don't want referendum or democracy. We want a revolution. And Rabbi Kahana said, yes, that's what I really mean. I mean, I don't believe that they'll ever give the people the right to make a referendum, right? And if they don't give the people the right to make a referendum, and they don't represent the people and do what the people want, then that's to be a revolution. So when they talk about this legal revolution going on here, or what do you call it? Judicial reform, or they call it a judicial revolution, whatever they want to call it. But that's part of the revolution. Unfortunately, the revolution, because it's in the hands of these small myopic politicians, they can't get it done. So what was your take on the book, Referendum or Revolution?
Well, obviously the book is 100% in terms of let the people decide, because before the book was written, Rabbi Kahana was a member of the Knesset, and he was running, and the polls were showing that he was doing extremely well when there's going to be another election. And they just ganged up to throw him out of the Knesset. They didn't want the Jewish truth. Here's the bottom line. It's the balance between the idea of a democratic, in quotations, a democracy, versus a Jewish state. And the people who are ramming it down our throat, what a definition of a Jewish state is, they have no idea what it means to be Jewish. People like Yair Lapid and others, and years ago, the education minister was Sholomit Aloni, who hates Judaism and even referred to the IDF as Nazis, and just ridiculous, and said the flag of Israel is just a shmata. She used terms like that. And her son became very active with the BDS movement, in fact. I think what I just think, what I know to be true, is that the struggle is for a Jewish state. And I see it happening. Exactly. I see it evolving, but we're not there yet. And we're certainly not there yet with the idea of a king and that. But we have to Jews have to have enough Jews in Israel and throughout the world, but mainly in Israel, because in Israel is where the identity is strong, and in diaspora it's extremely weak. Even had one of the leading Reform rabbis from New York, and he's an eloquent speaker. I think his last name is Hirsch, and he admitted the failure of Reform Judaism, and that many from the Reform Judaism movement are becoming anti-Israel, in fact. And he would go on about the difference between particularism, that's how he defined us staying apart, versus universalism. And he says, and that's the ideology that's taking off in Reform, universalism, which sets the movement eventually on a collision course with Israel and becomes anti-Israel. And that's what's going on. That the majority of people who are with the Reform movement identify with organizations like J Street, which are anti-Israel and certainly against the idea of a Jewish state. There's going to be a Zoom meeting happening in a few days. One of the people participating in this Zoom meeting is Avram Berg, who was a former speaker of the Knesset and a leader in the Labor Party, together with some Arab leaders in Israel, and they're forming a new party. That's the idea. They want to form a new party, some kind of unity party, Arabs and Jews, to get rid of the idea of a Jewish state. So you have that on the one hand. You have these losers on the one hand that want to shove it down our throats, anything but a Jewish state. And we have such potential in terms of such learning academies in Israel, yeshivot in Israel, and rabbis more and more, that there has to be courage in this community to speak out and give definition of what a Jewish state is, so Jews don't feel to run away from that idea, but to embrace it and to be proud of it. Almost like our forefather Yaakov, when he lay down to rest in Jerusalem, and he didn't even realize where he's lying down, and he had that dream of the ladders and the angels ascending and descending to Shemayim, to Shemayim and from Shemayim, to heaven and from heaven. And when he woke up, he said, "Wow, how awesome is this place? I didn't realize what this place was. This is the gateway to Shemayim." That Jews have to have that belief. That's what it is. And where you are right now, that's the Temple Mount. That's where he slept, the Temple Mount. And his head was right where the Akedah was, apparently. So there's an evolution going on, and I see it happening, and I see the book was more, when it was written, was first off in response to the banning of Rabbi Kahana from the Knesset. So he can't put forward the ideas. But revolution, of course, the revolution first starts in your mind, that you have to be fully convinced and committed. Just like when we study Torah and we do the mitzvahs, we're fully convinced that this is the Jewish way, and this is what we're supposed to do as Jews. We're supposed to, since we have Israel, develop Israel into proper Jewish state, where even the word proud isn't the right word, but that it's part of our essence, because it's supposed to be part of our essence, the whole idea of a Jewish state, and this whole idea of a democratic state. What kind of democratic state? Judaism does not have anything wrong in it. Judaism, the laws in Judaism are superior to Western democratic or European democratic ideas. That's their ideas, but we have our ideas, and we have a Sanhedrin that we're supposed to have, that's supposed to legislate. and pass laws. So the aspiration should be for that, and a revolution first in the mind, and that the people collectively, the Jewish people collectively, aspire for, and then build properly for that.
Let me just point out, okay, because you mentioned the idea of a Jewish state, which I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yet, when I was in law school, so I'm going back now 30 years approximately,
Yep.
over 30 years, and the issue came up in one of the courses was what is a Jewish state, and you should know that I'm being told to move. So, there were basically two opinions. What is Jewish? One opinion, which would be like our opinion, is a Jewish state means a state that is dictated by Jewish law and a Jewish government. That's there's the idea of Jewish meaning the people that run it have to be Jews, and they have to run it according to the Jewish law. And that would be the Jewish state. But but there were a lot of opinions that a Jewish state means majority of Jews. But there's nothing has to be Jewish about the state. Just the majority of people. In other words, that's why they have this law of return, right? Law of return is a law that says that any Jew in the world has the right to return to Israel under the law, and he can only be banned from coming to Israel if he's like some kind of danger to society. And we know that there were some of our people were banned from coming because they were connected to Rabbi Kahana, or they said things against the government. But for the most part, any Jew that wants to come and an aliyah can come an aliyah, and it's to the point. It's so absurd is that their interpretation of what is a Jew means like we call this the Russians that came here. A lot of them aren't even Jewish because the only connection that they have is they had a grandfather who was Jewish, and that became and that's why now the government wants to change the law because it got to be ridiculous that all these non-Jewish Russians were coming here based on this grandfather clause in the law.
Right.
But in any event, okay, now the rabbi's gonna be talking now, so let's see what he has to say, and I'll.
Okay.
בפרשה,
Yep.
דבר מאוד מעניין בסיפור של המרגלים, לא הרבה שמים לב לזה, יש 2 שלבים בדיבור של המרגלים. דבר ראשון, המרגלים באים ואומרים, באנו אל הארץ אשר שלחתנו, והנה זבת חלב ודבש היא, וזה פריה. תדעו לכם, ארץ ישראל, ארץ משובחת, זבת חלב ודבש, יש לה פירות נהדרים. אפס כי הזעם, יש איזה בעיה שצריך להתמודד איתה, שצריך להילחם עם כל האומות, ואין לנו סיכוי. טענה יפה. טענה אפשר לדון עליה, ככה כאילו הם טוענים, עומדים שם על המילה, הם הוסיפו את המילה אפס, שאין סיכוי. ואז כלב בן יפונה אומר, מה פתאום? הרי הקדוש ברוך הוא, לא נעלה וירשנו אותה כי יכולנו חלה. ואז האנשים אשר עלו עמו אמרו לא נוכל לעלות, ואז הם הוסיפו כי חזק הוא ממנו, וחז"ל אומרים, זה היה כפירה גדולה, ואז ויוציאו דיבת הארץ אשר תרו אותה לאמור, הארץ אשר עברנו בה לתור אותה, ארץ אוכלת יושבי האי. לכאורה, מה? אתם ככה דיברתם? מקודם אמרתם שזה ארץ זבת חלב ודבש. פתאום נזכרתם להגיד ארץ אוכלת יושבי האי? אם זה ארץ אוכלת יושבי האי, זה לא ארץ זבת חלב ודבש? אתם משקרים, ובאמת התורה עומדת ויוציאו דיבת הארץ על הפסוק הזה, שפה רואים שהם הוציאו דיבה. אבל מאיפה זה בא להם, שהם פתאום קוראים לארץ ישראל, ארץ אוכלת יושביה? יש דבר כזה שנקרא אדם שבא לשכנע, ובלהט הוויכוח הוא מתחיל לדבר שטויות ושקר. ואיך זה קורה? והדבר ראשון הוא טוען טענות הגיוניות. אני אמשיל את ארץ ישראל. אנשים באים ואומרים, אי אפשר לעלות לארץ ישראל. זה מאוד, זה מסוכן, זה מתגרה, התגרות בערבית, התגרות באומות, כל מיני. אחרי זה מתחילים להגיד כל מיני טענות אחרות. אסור לעלות להר הבית. למה אסור לעלות להר הבית? לבית כי זה מתגרה בכל הערבים, וזה מסוכן, וכל מיני דברים, ואנחנו צריכים, וכל העולם הנוצרי והעולם המוסלמי, כולם עלינו. אתם פחדנים. אבל פתאום מתחילים להגיד, ארץ אוכלת יושביה היא, בית כל כולו קריא, ארץ אוכלת יושביה היא. כבר מתחילים לדבר שטויות. למה מתחילים לדבר שטויות שכל כולו קריא? זה בא מזה שהתחילו להגיד סתם בהתחלת טענות, וכשמתרוב ויכוח כבר מתחילים לדבר שטויות. בהמשך, הפרשה, ואני רוצה קצת להזכיר את מה שהזכרתי על המעפילים ביום שני, אני רוצה קצת להרחיב את זה, וקצת לשים לב לחילוק. בהמשך הפרשה, הקדוש ברוך הוא אומר, עד אנה ינאצוני העם הזה, והעונש הוא שלא ייכנסו לארץ. ובזה נגמר הפרשה. יש פרשה ראשונה, העונש הוא שלא ייכנסו לארץ. ואני חושב שבאמת, אם רק היה נעצר בזה הפרשה, ייתכן מאוד שהמעפילים היו מצליחים. כי המעפילים אומרים, הננו ועלינו אל המקום אשר אמר השם. אנחנו אתמול אמרנו לא רוצים, עכשיו אנחנו כן רוצים, ואנחנו מתחרטים ועושים תשובה, כי חטאנו, חרטה, וידוי, הכל היה בסדר. אבל יש המשך, עד מתי לעדה הרעה הזאת, אשר הם מלינים עליי, את תלונות בני ישראל, שמעתי, ופה יש שם בהמשך, כשימותו האנשים מוציאי דיבת הארץ רע. הפרשה הזאת, זה קטע שני בפרשה, יש שם באמצע רווח, העולה שם, נראה לי העולה הרביעי שם, לא משנה, לא זוכר את החלוקה של העליות, אבל יש שם רווח בפרשה, מתחיל משהו חדש. זה פרשה שנייה, ושם יש את העונש של 40 שנה צריכים להיות במדבר. על העונש הזה כבר פה, אומרים מעפילים ממנו ועלינו, אתה צריך להיות עכשיו 40 שנה במדבר. העונש היה לא על החטא הראשון, שהם בהתחלה שמעו את המרגלים, והם אמרו באמת מסוכן ומפחיד לעלות לארץ. העונש הוא על זה שכשהם כבר ידעו שהם מדברים שטויות והם משקרים, כי הם אומרים ארץ אוכלת יושביה היא, והרי מקודם אמרתם לא ככה, זה אומר שאתם לא נאמנים, ואי אפשר להאמין לכם, על הדבר הזה יש את העונש הגדול, העונש של 40 שנה במדבר, עד תום פגריכם במדבר, העונש הגדול, העונש החמור, על ויוקו העם בלילה הוא, העונש החמור הוא בגלל הדבר הזה, שהאמינו לדיבת הארץ, ורואים את זה גם בחומש דברים, שחומש דברים, משה רבינו צועק עליהם ואומר להם, כשהם באו, אחיכם באו ואמרו, טובה הארץ אשר השם אלוהינו נותן לנו, ולא אביתם לעלות. לכאורה, מי שקורא שם את החומש, אומר, רגע, מה זה טובה הארץ אשר השם אלוהינו נותן לנו? מי דיבר ככה? הרי הם אמרו, רק 2 אמרו ככה. איך אתה יכול להגיד שהם כולם הלכו וחזרו ואמרו טובה הארץ? אבל התשובה לא, כי באמת הם באמת אמרו טובה הארץ. הם באמת אמרו טובה הארץ. נכון שאת המילים טובה הארץ מאוד מאוד אמר כלב אחרי זה, אבל גם הם אמרו טובה הארץ, ולא אביתם לעלות בגלל שפחדתם, ואז נהיה המשך, אחינו המסו את לבבינו, אני מצטט עכשיו מחומש דברים, הסדר הנוסף, השלב הבא נהיה, בגלל שהם הוציאו דיבת הארץ, והייתם צריכים להבין מתוך דבריהם שזה כבר דיבת הארץ, ועל זה עיקר הטענה, ושם יכול להיות התשובה של המעפילים, ולכן המעפילים חטאו. אבל אם היה רק השלב הראשון, שרק העונש שלו להיכנס לארץ, יכול להיות שבאמת המעפילים צדקו, כמו שהעירו, כמו שהגמרא כבר אומרת שהמעפילים, החטא שלהם הוא לא כל כך חמור. הוא חמור, אבל הוא לא באותו חומר שנהיה למרגלים. בכל אופן, אבל מה שצריך לשים לב פה, יש 2 שלבים בדיבת הארץ של המרגלים. והשלב הבא הוא שלב שצריך להבין, מתי מתחילים להבין שמי שמדבר הוא מדבר דברים לא נכונים, זה כשהוא אומר דברים שכל מי שבר דעת שמקשיב אומר ומדבר שטויות. ארץ אוכלת יושביה, לפני רגע אמרת לא ככה. ואני עובר פה, יש ויכוח, יש טענות ויש שאלות. העלייה להר באמת מורכבת משאלות, ושאלות הלכתיות שצריך לדון בהן. אם זה ויכוח על הגבולות של הארץ, שאני חושב שזה ויכוח שהוא מוכרע וברור, אבל יש ויכוחים. יש טענות שמפחדים מי שיעלה, ולא כולם יטבלו כראוי, ויש זה, ונידות, ולא הכל אפשר. שומע? טענה, אפשר להתווכח עליה. אני חושב שהטענות לא נכונות, אפשר להתווכח על זה. אבל פתאום מתחילים להגיד, לא, כל הר הבית זה כרת. זה כבר מבינים שמי שמתווכח שם הוא כבר עבר את הגבולות שלו. הוא כבר לא יודע על מה הוא מדבר. הקדוש ברוך הוא יעזרנו. דבר ראשון, אנחנו צריכים להתפלל על עצמנו, שלפעמים אנחנו גם, לפעמים תוך כדי כל בן אדם, לפעמים תוך כדי ויכוח נתחיל לדבר שטויות. אנחנו צריכים להתפלל על עצמנו, שקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור עלינו וייתן לנו דעה, בינה והשכל, לא לדבר שטויות אף פעם. חוץ מזה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ייתן לכל עם ישראל דעה, בינה והשכל, לא לדבר שטויות, ולהבין שארץ ישראל וירושלים ומקום המקדש זה ארץ מתוקה, ארץ טובה, ארץ זבת חלב ודבש, וארץ שנותנת אך ורק טובה, טובה הארץ מאוד מאוד.
רבי חנניה.
רבי חנניה, אתה אומר, אתה כבר...
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. ועמד יברח חיותי וימליך מלכותי ויצמח וקנה ויקרב משיחי. חי יכול ומכון חי יכול בית ישראל בעגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. שמי רבה ברח לעולם ברח משתבח וכמה מנסה. תודה ותלב תלה שמי וקדשה בריחו. לעולם בכל דבריו ושירותיו ושבותיו ונחמתה דמיון בעמד ואמרו אמן. על ישראל חנן בר תלמידיהם ועל כל תלמידיהם ועל כל מן נזמין את התר קדישה אדם וכל אתר ואתר אלא נכון שם הרב אחינו וחיזר החנן וחוזרים ושמעיה והרע ואמרו אמן.
אמן.
שמיים וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen. Amen.
So I'm going to translate the rabbi. Before I just want to mention that tomorrow is my father's yortzeit. You remember my father? You met him years ago.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So it's his yortzeit tomorrow, the 19th of Sivan. So the rabbi spoke about the sin of the spies, but he had a very interesting insight into the whole thing with the spies, and I think it's something that we could definitely learn and apply in our lives. Is that he said basically the spies came back, and when they reported to Moshe, the 10 spies said, "Yeah, the land's good, and it was flowing milk and honey." So they were saying good things about the land of Israel. But then, as they continue on, they said, "But we really can't come in and liberate the land because the nations there are very powerful, and the land eats its inhabitants." So they basically scared everybody off. They put the fear into the people that they're going to come into the land, they're going to be slaughtered, and so he says that basically we see here there were two. They were telling the beginning. They started off telling the truth, right? The land is flowing of milk and honey. But then they because their intention was bad, was evil, was not righteous. They couldn't continue talking the truth. They had to start talking, stupidity. And they started saying about the land. Now, any normal person would say, "Wait a second! You just said the land is flowing milk and honey. The land is good. Now you're saying the land eats its inhabitants. So make up your mind. Which is it, right? That should have been the answer to the people. Not, oh, well, we can't go in because we're going to get killed. But rather challenge the spies. Like, what's the deal?" And he said that was the major sin. Not this. In other words, there were basically two sins. One sin was that they said, to the people, because they said, it's dangerous. There are very, very strong nations there, and this and that. And that could be, that could be true. That could be true, right? That could be true. That the nations were there, were strong, and we're gonna have to fight them, and this and that, right? But then to say, which again, that in itself is a problem. In other words, we have to believe in Hashem. We have to trust in Hashem. And even if nations in the land were very powerful and strong and all that, we have to believe in Hashem and not worry about that. But that's one problem, okay? And that problem is a lot less severe than the second problem, which was that they started saying stupidity like the land eats the people, right? Like people can't live there. And that, he said, in essence, was the really bad sin of talking bad against the land. There's one statement was it's dangerous, which is a statement that you could say is dealing with reality. But the second statement of the land eats the people is ridiculous and stupid, and the fact that they spoke against the land and the people accepted that and didn't challenge them, that was the really bad sin. That for that they were punished with 40 years in the desert, to wander in the desert for 40 years, because they believed the lashon hara, the defamation of the land of Israel by the spies, saying the land eats its people. It's such a bad land that eats its people. which they, like he said, they should have challenged that. They should have known right away that that's ridiculous. That's not the case. So he said, and he says the way the portion is set up, you can see the division of the two. In other words, there's like it shows that there are basically two problems, and the major problem is really the fact that they spoke bad about the land in the end. Not that they, it was bad enough that they tried to scare the people.
Right.
Now, the one of the things that is always mentioned is we're explained why did these great leaders, wise men, Torah scholars that were the spies, why did they do this? Okay, why did they do this? There are those people who say that they preferred life in the desert over coming into the land, because life in the desert was God has sent us the manna from heaven. People don't have to work. They basically can just eat manna and learn Torah, and
Right.
when they eat meat, they bring it to the tabernacle and bring it as a sacrifice, and they life is good. What do we need to now? The challenges of coming to the land of Israel, people are gonna have to work and fight and work the land, and so they said, well, the situation here is so much better than having to go into the land. Who needs it?
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
I don't know if that's really the case or not. Let's assume that they're right. Those people that say that, but that would reflect, like we said, a lot of today Torah scholars that don't live in the land of Israel and don't tell the people to come to the land of Israel. And
Yep.
despite the fact that today it's so easy, in other words, back then it's even worse than the spies, because back then there really were challenges of well, we're gonna have to work instead of learn. I mean, people can come here and learn; they don't have to work. It's a lot easier to learn here than it is there, as you mentioned before, of all the yeshivas and the Torah institutions and so on. And so all the claims that I've heard this before when I lived in America. I heard rabbis saying, "Well, who needs to go? I don't need to go. I have everything I need here. I have my synagogue. I have my yeshiva. I have my books."
Yeah.
I never seen the whole point. That's not what God commanded us. I mean, it's important to learn Torah, but that's not that's not the whole picture. That's not the Jewish idea. That's like Rabbi Kana would say. It's like
Right.
seeing the trees and not seeing the forest. This is
Mhm.
the whole point. And unfortunately, here we are now on the northern side. You can see now the whole temple plaza here, where the temple should stand, in place of what we see up here now. Again, there are very few people here today other than us Jews, which is very nice. It's a nice big crowd of Jews here.
Yep.
And it all requires if the Jews would come in mass and force the government to take back the Temple Mount and rebuild the temple, it would be a reality. Unfortunately, like the rabbi mentioned before, as part of his Dvar Torah was, after he spoke about the spies, he said, and we're facing that today, about living in the land of Israel and also coming to the Temple Mount. People start off saying you can't come to the Temple Mount because it's gonna cause the Arabs to get angry. It's going to cause the world to get angry, and so on and so on. They go with it's dangerous, it's provocative, and so on. And then when you show them that there's really nothing to be afraid of, and it's not true, then they start saying, well, it's all it's forbidden, and you're all going to be punished with being cut off because you're all impure and all kinds of stories. And he says that's basically like the spies. In other words, it starts off with some realistic challenge of is it dangerous or not, and then it becomes talking stupidity, which is what there obviously are questions about where you can go and how you're supposed to go and this and that, but there are answers to all that. You just have to learn it. You can't just carte blanche say it's forbidden, 'cause it's not. That's just story, bubba mices, as they say. It's just
Right.
people making up stories. So that's the problem. So the sin of the spies is still here, still amongst us, and it just doesn't go away. It just doesn't go away. It seems like we're stuck. And remember, because what happened was with the spies, in the end, it says they started crying about the situation. That on the one hand, they're commanded to go into the land. On the other hand, the spies are telling them they're all going to be slaughtered, and they all started crying. And then that day was Tisha B'av, the 9th of Av,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
the national day of calamity. And
Right.
the rabbis tell us is that God said, this is, you cried for nothing, so now you're going to pay by having a day, eternal day of crying, you know, like Tisha B'av, crying for the temple. The temple was
Right.
destroyed. The first temple and second temple were destroyed on Tisha B'av, and all
Yep.
kinds of calamities have happened to the Jewish people on Tisha B'av, and it all has to do with the original sin of the spies on Tisha B'av of talking bad against the land and trying to convince the people not to go in and stay in the desert. We should be like Bedouin and live in the desert, and not have our own country and our own land, holy land with the Temple Mount, with the Jerusalem. Defeating, like you said before about the reform, universalism versus particularism, right?
Yep.
You can't be universal and be a Jew. They just
Right.
it's a oxymoron. You can't be.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying you can't pray for the entire world. The temple brought a blessing to the entire world. We're not for destroying the world. The opposite. We're for the world, serving Hashem. But you can't be
100%.
universal. You can't be universal. You have to understand what our purpose by being particular. We're going to help the entire world. By being universal, we're going to destroy the world.
Right.
So,
it's interesting. Another aspect about the spies is that before all that, we came from Egypt, and God performed miracles, and then we left, and we made it to the sea, and there was a lot of fear at the sea because before the crossing, because they saw the Egyptian army pursuing them. And they thought, and they were complaining to Moses about that, like, what gives? And they broke into like 4 different groups to decide what to do. And one Jew took the lead, Nachshon ben Aminadab. He went into the water because that's what it was. You're gonna go across, and our mission is to go eventually and create a Jewish state in Israel and build the temple there. The sea parted, and the Egyptian army was demolished as they tried to pursue the Jews through the sea. And then on dry land, we have all kinds of attacks from the Amalekites and others. And in spite of all that, the spies bring back this report to dissuade the people from fulfilling what we're supposed to fulfill and go forward and conquer the land of Israel. And it really throws you for a loop, because these were supposed to be scholars and everything that were going as our leaders and as our spies to come back and just give us a report. Instead of giving a report on what the mission was, what we thought the mission's supposed to be, they give a false report and they defame the land. It really brings into question about leadership. Because yes, like you said, in the United States, there's all kinds of rabbis before you made Aliyah that are giving all kinds of excuses, and it's really sad and really telling. Because I can give you an example. I remember, I'm sure you remember too, in New York City, I went to join the JDL contingent at the parade for Israel, the Israel parade in the 80s. And I remember there probably was a 250,000 Jews at least, maybe more, that would participate in the march. You know, the JDL, sometimes they'd go around with the flags also. People would throw all kinds of money into the flags. We had a large contingent marching. And there were so many Jews that would come out to New York City. And after all, in New York City alone, I think, 2.5 million Jews lived there, or maybe more even.
It wasn't even only Jews.
And
There were a lot of non-Jews who would come and march with Israel.
Sure, certainly. So a few weeks ago in Toronto, we have what's called the annual Walk for Israel. And the Toronto Jewish community is, 200,000 Jews living in Toronto. It's the largest Jewish community in Canada. There's other cities, Montreal and some other cities in Canada that have Jewish communities, but Toronto's the largest one. And we had, at the Walk for Israel, approximately 30,000 Jews that walked for Israel and raised money for Israel. In New York City, they had just last weekend, the Israel parade. And although there still are, according to surveys, over 2 million Jews living in New York, they had just over 40,000 Jews that participated, right? That's a significant drop.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So where's the leadership there, right?
That's pathetic.
It definitely. Yeah. So it is a sinking ship in diaspora. I mean, Rabbi Kahana would tell me Toronto is just behind American Jews. You'll see. He's right. He was right 100% with the assimilation and intermarriage and everything, and alienation and all that going on. But it's really something when I say there's like a population of Jews in Toronto, about 200,000. You get 30,000 plus that come out for the Walk for Israel, and in New York City that has about 2 million Jews, and you get 40,000.
30,000 out of 200 is not bad.
Yeah, and if the ratio would be the same in New York, you would have what over 200,000 showing up to the parade for Israel. You don't have that yet. 40,000, not good, really. It shows that rate of assimilation, and it falls on the shoulders of the leadership, from the Rabbanim in New York to all the way down.
But I'll tell you something else. I agree with you, but I want to add that a lot of responsibility should be thrown on the leaders of Israel, who talk the same rhetoric as BDS and all the enemies of Israel, and then you have to why shouldn't then a assimilated Jew in the diaspora say, well, I don't talk any different than the leaders of Israel. So what do you want from me? And that's it's just unbelievable. It wasn't that way. It wasn't that way in the past. It was funny. My brother back in the 70s, he went to a speech by Golda Meir in New York.
Yep.
And at the end of her speech, he was taking doing questions and answers, and he says to her, and he was a member of Beitar, and obviously she was the social Zionist, and he says to her, I want to make Aliyah so I can put you out of office, And she said, yeah, okay, great. Come on, Aliyah, and do it. I'm not, don't talk, do it. It was the same Golda Meir that said there's no Palestinian people. Can you imagine him saying that today? Can you imagine any Israeli leader? Even the right wing don't say that.
Yeah.
There's no Palestinian people when she's right. And when my brother was like, he couldn't answer her because she was right. I said, you put your money where your mouth is. Come on, Aliyah. And yeah, sure, vote us out of office. but that's, the, it's funny, you look at Ben Gurion, you look at Golda Meir, you look at all these people, and you say to yourselves, they were better than the right wing today. That's how
Yeah.
things have changed.
Yeah.
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 These people believed in the Bible. They studied the Bible. You have pictures of Ben Gurion standing on Mount Sinai reading from the Bible. It was a whole different era, and and
Yep.
and 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 Israeli leaders didn't talk. I mean, there were things like Abba Eban would say, he was very diplomatic. My grandfather loves Abba Eban because the way he spoke, he was very,
Yeah.
articulate at the UN, and he was very, liberal, left wing. But still, even him, compared to what you got today, it's just unbelievably pathetic. How
Yes.
we have to be sympathetic and understand the other side and take their their position into account as if it's legitimate, some kind of legitimate position that the Arabs have some kind of claim to the land of Israel. Instead of just saying
Yeah.
it clearly straight across the board, if you don't like it here and it's not good for you, then get up and leave because you really have nothing. There's no purpose of you in being here. But nobody says that to them. Even Itamar Ben-Gvir, the great hope, says he's busy trying to stop the Arabs from being murdered by each other. Instead of saying, you guys want to kill yourselves, that's your problem. Why do we have to spend our money and efforts on saving you guys when you're a bunch of animals killing each other? It's bad enough you try to kill us, you kill yourselves. It's not like adding a few cops is gonna change anything with them. It's in their culture. They're a bunch of murderers. They live by the sword, and nothing will change. It's not like it's going to change. You can't take that out of them. That's in their DNA. They're a bunch of murder in an instant. In an instant, an Arab. I was discussing this the other day with somebody. In an instant, an Arab could change from being a nice, normal guy into being a murderer because it's embedded in their DNA to want to kill people, and that's why they go around killing people, their own people, for the most ridiculous reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of Itamar worrying about how he's going to stop all the extortion going on, where Jewish businesses are extorted by the Arabs, he's worried about preventing the murder of Arabs murdering each other. All right, we just left the Temple Mount. Here, the guys are starting to sing, but obviously the Temple Mount didn't let us sing. But sing and dance. There we'll dance here, singing. But hopefully we will be able to sing
One day.
the Temple Mount.
Absolutely.
When there are very large groups, we can get away with it. People sing and they get away with it. That'll be me. All right, so I'm taking it off here and gonna go to work. But as always, it's great being here. The opportunity to come up to the Temple Mount. You say to yourself, even if somebody's worried about whether it's permitted or not permitted to go up, he has to say to himself. I mean, this is where I look at it. You have to say to yourself, wait a second, okay, it might be a question whether I'm supposed to go up or not go up, but how could it be that the Arabs go up? How could it be that the tourists go up? How could it be that the Temple Mount is by forfeit in their hands? It can't be that this is what God wants. It can't be what Hashem wants for it to be in their hands. So, you know what? All these people say you can't go up, and it's holy and this and that. Well, they should be fighting to shut it down at the very least. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You don't want anybody. You don't want Jews to go in. Then nobody should go in. Shut it down. But I don't see that, which means to me, like, again, that's a fraudulent statement that they're worried about.
It all stems from cowardice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know? As we know, when the enemies of Israel see tough Jews, they run away.
Absolutely.
With Jews, that's when Jews that want to be nice and accepted, that's when they become anti-Semites. The
Yep.
anti-Semitism is caused by the Jew who wants to fit in, who wants to assimilate. The other ones look, and look, I mean, obviously I'm not defending anti-Semites or anti-Semitism. I mean, but look at the Nazis. Where did they rise to power? In Germany, the country where the Jews wanted to assimilate more than any other place.
Yep.
Than the Jews in Eastern Europe. But this is the and unfortunately in Israel again, like we said before, the question is, do we want a Jewish state or a state of Jews? And if
Yep.
it's a state of Jews, who's a Jew and who's a Jew, and but it doesn't mean we're going to have a Jewish state. We're just going to have a state of Jews, and that's not what we want.
Right. Right.
So,
Mara,
yeah,
thank you very much.
okay. I'll see
Absolutely.
you
We'll do it next week.
next week. Yeah. All right.
Perfect.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Have a great day.
All right.
Bye-bye.